Player says, and the abbot said to me, Andreas. Option 1 of 3, I don't want you distracting the sisters in the library. Option 2 of 3, I need you to finish this commission by the end of April. Option 3 of 3, keep your conversations with Brother Pierrot to a minimum. Option Beatrice says, isn't that much earlier than you were expecting? Player says yes. He had told me I had until the Ides of May. Saint Grobian says, asshole. And he's not going to pay you any more, is he? He has no appreciation for the cost of your sweat. Socrates says the yield of labor should not be measured in coin, but in personal satisfaction and self-improvement. Saint Grobian says personal satisfaction doesn't put much food on the table though, does it? Hee. Prester John says, how did you reply to the abbot, Andreas? Option 1 of 3, I said I would do my best to get it done by the end of April. Option 2 of 3, I told him it would be done when it was done, sometime before the Ides of May. Option 3 of 3, I shrugged and kept on working. Option 1 of 3, Socrates says, with discipline and mindfulness, you will persevere. Beatrice says, if you don't kill yourself striving to meet the abbot's unreasonable expectations. Saint Grobian says what she said. What's the point in burning your candle to the nub for the idiot abbot's sake? Prester John says, despite the abbot's ire, you must endure. Soon you will have finished both the abbot's work as well as your masterpiece. And then you will return to Nuremberg, where marriage and your new life as a master await you. Beatrice says yes, marriage to someone he has never met. Hardly ideal. Socrates says, well, the alternative is becoming a philosopher. Saint Grobian says, oh, Jesus, then you should definitely get married. Is she pretty, at least? Option 1 of 3, that's what my brother said in his letter, but maybe he's just trying to lift my spirits. Option 2 of 3, the small portrait they sent was lovely, but we artists can be flatterers. Option 3 of 3, oh, who knows? That's not why I'm doing it, anyway. Option 2, Prester John says it is growing late. The wheel of time stops for no man, Andreas. I fear you must leave us. Player says, ah, true, your majesty. Prester John says, will you visit us again soon? Option 1 of 3, hopefully, but it's out of my control, your majesty. Option 2 of 3, I don't know, your majesty. Option 3 of 3, well, I can't always dream of this place, your majesty. Option 1 of 3, hopefully, but it's out of my control, your majesty. Prester John says, as are many things. Trust in providence. Grobian, please see Andreas safely home. Saint Grobian says, of course, your majesty. Prester John says, until next time, Andreas. Player says, until next time, your majesty. Saint Grobian says, pay no mind to the other fools, Andreas. Player says, I never do. Ow. At least I would if they'd stop stepping on my feet. Watch where you're going. Saint Grobian says, they're fools, Andreas. No point in trying to teach them anything. I know old John wants you to endure the abbot's shit, but since I take you home, I get the last word. Don't let him run you rag, boy. Option 1 of 3, I won't. The abbot can't push me around. Option 2 of 3, he's just trying to keep order in the abbey. I'm an outsider. Option 3 of 3, it will be fine. I don't want to cause any trouble. Option 2 of 3, he's just trying to keep order in the abbey. I'm an outsider. Saint Robin says right, an outsider he brought in. If he wants your work, he has to deal with you as you are. Player says Goth. Would you please ST? I give up. Take me home, Grobian. Saint Grobian says hee. As you wish, Andreas. Player says good morning, Ursula. Ursula says guum. And dur. Player says time to get up. Click Journal tab to access quests. Click icon to interact. Ex Libris. Journal. Maps. People. Glossary. Options. Maps. Player says I really should clean this up. The Picatrix, Key of Solomon, the Heptameron. Prior Ferenc keeps giving me all of these books to read. Go to bed. Player says I'm not tired yet. Perhaps after Compline. Gertner house. Ursula says Andreer, PPPBBT. Gertner guest room. Clara. Clara says good morning, Andreas. Did you sleep well? Option 1 of 3, quite well actually. Option 2 of 3 ordinary, as far as sleeping goes. Option 3 of 3, not well but there's nothing to be done about it now. Option 1 of 3, quite well actually. Clara says oh, I'm so glad to hear it. Anyway, I know you'll be off to the abbey, so I packed you some food. Almonds, cheese, and some of the rye you like from the Albans. Otto wanted me to ask you to join him for dinner at the abbey. Eva says Otto stopped by? Clara says yes, around dawn. Here you are, Andreas. Option 1 of 2, that's too kind of you, Clara. Many thanks. Clara says Master Andreas, if it wouldn't be too much trouble could I mean, could we? Would it be too much trouble if you paid next month's rent today? And if we raised it by 2 groschen? I hate to ask, but we're behind on our taxes to the abbey. 2 months behind. Peter's losing his hair over it. Even more than usual, I mean. Option 1 of 4, of course. It's no problem at all. Besides, we wouldn't want Peter to lose any more of his precious hair. Option 2 of 4 at ER. I suppose that's not out of the question. Yes, I think I can manage that. Option 3 of 4 I can't promise anything. I'll see what I can do. Option 4 of 4 well, wait, were these taxes unexpected? Clara says Peter says our taxes didn't go up for years, but ever since we've been married, it's just gone up and up. It used to be that if we didn't have the money, we could make payment in kind with some of our crops. The abbot stopped that last year. Now if we don't get a good price from the miller, it's hard to give the abbey its share. I know it's not your problem, Andreas, and Peter is too proud to ask you himself. Can you find it in your heart to help us out? Option 1 of 2, of course. It's no problem at all. Besides, we wouldn't want Peter to lose any more of his precious hair. Option 2 of 2 at, I suppose that's not out of the question. Yes, I think I can manage that. Option 1, Clara says oh, God bless you, Andreas. And may Saint Luke watch over you today. Speaking of Saint Luke, how is your masterpiece coming along? It's been 2 months now, hasn't it? Player says slowly, I'm afraid. Most of my days are spent doing work for the abbey. It's only during the divine office that Prior Ferenc allows me to work on my masterpiece. A reasonable restriction, but slow going. The city council doesn't require it to become a master. I'm making it mostly to show clients, and for my own sake. And yes, when I do finish, I will go back to Nuremberg, where I will marry and open a workshop of my own. Clara says from Nuremberg to a university and now traveling the world as an artist. What a life you have ahead of you, Master Andreas. Player says yes, I suppose it does feel like I'm starting a new chapter in my life after. Option 1 of 3, a few missteps. Option 2 of 3, some wandering. Option 3 of 3, a little too much fun. Option 1 of 3, a few missteps. Clara says it must be rather frightening, starting all over again. Option 1 of 2 I owe it to my family to make something of my life. Option 2 of 2 it is, but I know now that this is what I want to do. Player says not many people get to decide that. Clara says certainly not anyone in Tassing. Anyway, I don't know anything about art, but I've seen you sketching such beautiful things in your little book. Your masterpiece must be wonderful. Option 1 of 3 it is. It's my finest work. Option 2 of 3 it's getting there. Option 3 of 3 well, it's hard to say until it's done. Option 1 of 3 it is. It's my Clara says good. It makes me glad to see some confidence in the men around here sometimes. Now, I have to get back to my own work. Have a good day at the Abbey, Andreas, and we'll see you after Vespers for supper. Player says not tonight, but thank you. Klaus Drucker invited me over for supper. Clara says of course. Please say hello to the Druckers for us. Player says of course. Until later, Clara. Clara. Eva, Clara. Clara. Eva. Eva says hello, Andreas. Clara. Player says hello, Clara. Can you spare a moment to chat? Clara says of course, Andreas. How can I help? Option 1 of 2 I was wondering if I could help with your tax troubles. Option 2 of 2 you said you were behind on taxes to the Abbey. Exactly how much are you short? Clara says oh, well, about 2 guldens worth. If you can't pay your rent early, that's all right. I'm sure we can find some way to pay the abbot. Option 1 of 2 I'm happy to contribute whatever I can. I know times are hard for you right now. Option 2 of 2 no, I'll have my payment for you. I was merely curious. Option Clara says you have a good heart, Andreas, but I'm afraid I can't accept. Peter's too proud of a man to ask for charity while there's still ground to till. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked you about rent in the first place. You're young, and have your own life ahead. Option 1 of 2 I'm happy to pay early, Clara. You've been good hosts to me, and I can do without more than your family. Option 2 of 2 if you're sure. Clara says God bless you, Andreas. Don't mention this to Peter, alright? He would hate to know I told you about our troubles. Option 1 of 2 he won't know a thing. Option 2 of 2 alright. Clara says thank you, Andreas. Player says until later, Clara. Gertner Farm. Gertner House. Peter. Gertner House. Big Yerg says morning, Andreas. Player says morning, Big Yerg. How's it going? You working today? Big Yerg says just taking a rest for a bit. Dad's still in the field. He hit a big rock with the plow and it took me Lord knows how long to pull it out. You off to the Abbey? Option 1 of 2 every day but Sunday. Option 2 of 2 where else would I be going? Option 1 of 2 every day but Sunday, Big Yerg says right. Thank God for Sundays. Smells like a storm's coming, no? Player says hey. Just smells like fresh alpine air to me. Big Yerg says you've been traveling too much. Where was it you spent your wander jar before you came to Tassing? Option 1 of 3 Basel Andreas knows some Italian and French and can reference cultural touchstones from Basel and nearby Bern, Zurich, and Freiburg. Option 2 of 3 Flanders Andreas knows some Dutch and French and can reference cultural touchstones from Antwerp, Bruges, and Ghent. Option 3 of 3 Italy Andreas knows Italian, a little Greek, and can reference cultural touchstones from Florence, Venice, and Milan. Option 1 of 3 Basel Andreas knows some Italian and French and can reference cultural touchstones from Basel and nearby Bern, Zurich. Player says over in Switzerland. Basel, mostly. Big Yerg says Swiss air must be different, then. Spend enough time in these mountains and you'll be able to smell a storm coming. Player says how long will that take? Big Yerg says 10, 15 years? Player says I don't think I have that long, Big Yerg. Big Yerg says what did you spend all that time in Switzerland doing, anyway? Other than art, I mean. Option 1 of 5 Hedonist Andreas seeks out pleasure wherever he goes. He is extremely social and quite experienced in all of the enjoyable vices of the world. Option 2 of 5 Craftsman Andreas lives to work and dedicates all of his time to his art. Option 3 of 5 Bookworm Andreas spends all of his non-working free time finding and reading as many books as he possibly can. Option 4 of 5 Rapscallion Andreas has a penchant for getting involved in petty schemes, pranks, minor crimes, and fistfights. Option 5 of 5 Businessman Andreas devotes much of his time to self-promotion, optimizing business expenses, making investments, and balancing his books. Player says learning how to run a business. The art will come with time, but how to manage finances, deal with clients. I have to secure my place in the world when I become a master. That's going to come from coin. Big Yerg says you're a smart man, Andreas. Wish I could say anyone in my family knew anything about business. Most years we barely have enough to get by. The peasant's lot, I suppose. Anyway, I have to get going. Peter says Yerg. Let's go. Big Yerg says Dad's already acting like I'm taking too long even though I did all the work to get that rock out. See you later, Andreas. Player says until later. Big Yerg. Big Yerg. Gertner House. Big Yerg. Big Yerg says, hey, Andreas. You say hello to the girls today? Player says Eva and Clara. Big Yerg says no, I mean the chickens. Peter, James, and John. They like it when you stroke their back or give them a good scratch under the breast. Player says you named your chickens after the apostles? Isn't that blasphemy? Big Yerg says I guess when you put it plain like that. But I hear about the apostles every Sunday in Mass. They witnessed Jesus' greatest moments of glory and his darkest trials. And I was thinking, that's how it is with the girls and me. They see everything I deal with around here. Option 1 of 2 that makes perfect sense to me, Big Yerg. You have much in common with Christ. Option 2 of 2 word of advice, don't mention that to anyone else. Especially the father. Big Yerg says it's fine, I get it. I'll just call them the girls from now on. Player says I don't recall your family eating eggs. What do you do with all of them? Big Yerg says oh, we sell them to the Bowers. Clara says we need the extra money for taxes. Anyway, I should get back to it. Until later, Andreas. Player says until then. Big Yerg. Big Yerg says hey, Andreas. Gertner house, Peter. Peter says Andreas. Andreas. Ill Peter. Ill Peter says God bless you, ah. Player says. Andreas. Ill Peter says ah, oh. Yes, Andreas. Ill Peter says this weather's been god-awful. This town's gone to shit since my days. Option 1 of 2 I don't think the townsfolk can do much about the weather. Option 2 of 2 were things very different when you were young? Ill Peter says as different as beer and piss. The old abbot didn't bother us much about our customs. He didn't mind if we left a little offering to Perchta to keep the skies clear, the weather fair. Matthias knew that Christ was in our hearts even if the White Lady's name was on our lips. Option 1 of 4 the church banned all observances of pagan gods, Ill Peter. Option 2 of 4 what sort of old customs? Option 3 of 4 I thought St. Moritz protected tassing. Option 4 of 4 you think that spirits have been fouling the weather since no one follows the customs anymore? Option 2 of 4 what sort of old customs? Ill Peter says the kind that scare away witches and keep spirits from calling storm clouds over our farms. The saints weren't the first to watch over tassing. My father knew that. Old Rannig Kemper knew that. That bastard abbot may not like it, but some of us keep the traditions alive. Option 1 of 3 like the old widow, Adelia. Option 2 of 3 I won't mention that at the abbey. Option 3 of 3 what do these traditions entail? Ill Peter says when you get up in the night to take a piss, go around the right side of the house, and never go back the same way. That way the witches don't steal your soul. Option 1 of 2 oh. How interesting. Ill Peter says cough cough. Player says I should go. Ill Peter says All right. God bless you. God bless you. Ill Peter, Peter, Gertner house, Big Yerg. Town Commons.